Hello, wider listeners. Y'all listening to a weekly program we do here on the air where we break down what's going on here in the Kalamazoo area, as well as the state of Michigan, the so-called United States, and the rest of the world from a working class perspective. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. As always, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 WIDR or Western Michigan University, no matter how dope or insightful they may turn out to be. Well, we've got a lot of ground to cover on today's show. We're kind of in that weird dead zone between semesters. There are a few people wandering around on campus. I see them outside in the window here. But yeah, it's kind of that quiet time on campus where things settle down. Unless actually you go down the way just a little bit here from the student center. They're very excited to bring you the news that WMU has joined the constellation of universities across the country, student-led encampments that are putting up encampments on their campus to support um, the people of Gaza, to call for divestment from their local universities, from entities that materially support the IDF and the Israeli government. Uh, Happy to see it, glad to see it. We'll be talking about that in more depth later in the program. I'll actually be joined by one of the organizers, one of the student organizers here on campus. We're also going to be spending some time talking about some local issues right here in our backyard. Wanted to talk a little bit about what is going on with Water Street Coffee. And we've also got some uh, very intriguing and eye-opening reports about the impact of school shooter drills on students, as well as more general updates about what is going on over in Palestine. So I think we're going to start with. So this got brought to my attention just a few days ago, and I heard about a week ago, actually. At this point, right after our last episode went to air. But there's been some scuttlebutt on social media about Water Street Coffee and the working conditions workers there work under. So I'm going to be spending our first chunk of our show talking about that, and the fact that we do have some people calling for a boycott of Water Street Coffee. And before I go kind of deep dive into what some of these complaints are, let me first kind of show. So there's a flyer. You may have seen it going around Instagram, um, specific to what is going on at Water Street Coffee, but they sum it up thusly. If it'll pull up on my computer, sorry folks, there's a little bit of a delay there. Um, but essentially, a lot of issues about making a living wage, being overworked. Um, oh, here it is. Sorry. But the flyer to boycott Water Street Coffee that some of you may have been seeing online talks about poverty, wages below minimum wage, unethical and hazardous working conditions, deceitful tip pooling between all of the shops, um, which, from what current and former workers have described, essentially there's a shared tip pool, and um, Water Street locations, the general traffic in them, there's a big disparity how much traffic there is between certain locations. So the downtown one, the two downtown locations have much less than, say, the one on Oakland Drive. And while the workers aren't trying to necessarily pit themselves against each other, it does lead to a situation where a lot of the hard work that might be happening at one location is not reflected in take home pay. They talk about no breaks for any shifts, whether 4 or 9 hours, constant disregard for employees, and consistent broken equipment. Furthermore, on the flyer, it says the Water Street coffee baristas are suffering. The company's money is going straight to the higher ups. The staff see hardly any of it. If you disagree with any of these practices, they implore to use your voice and contact management. Also wanted to kind of talk or refer to some of what's been said in the Reddit thread that gets a little bit more specific. Just I did do my due diligence, and I've talked to some friends and community members who work there or used to work there, and they have basically confirmed the bulk of these allegations and complaints. But you have people talking about being full-time college students, and some of the advantages, like they do good scheduling, but the pay just being absolutely not only unfair, but not what they even directly advertise. And they also mention that the job listings on Indeed usually they say they list between $13 to $17 an hour. And they claim that it's closer to $9 an hour with cash tips and credit card tips, which again are put into a collective pool rather than going directly to the employees that customers are trying to tip. And they also talk about how excuse me, again, the payment of poverty wages, kind of the idea of feeling trapped and stuck. They do tend to employ a lot of younger people who do not have a broad frame of reference for what acceptable working conditions are, and how they should be treated at those places. Again, especially a lot of the Oakland employees talk about being just absolutely worked to the bone. And we've got also some allegations talking about people who worked directly in um, the food kitchens, talking about a large degree of uh, food waste that goes on, and a degree of price gouging that is above and beyond what you see at even a lot of other kind of upwardly mobile coffee joints around town. To quote, they talk about the Danish. It's 100% handmade down to the jam. It's about $6.50 for one Danish. Looking at a very similar local bakery called Baker's Rhapsody in southern Michigan, their Danishes are larger and better and also completely handmade. The only difference is that it's about $3.25 cheaper. That's called price gouging, and it's gross. And going on, they talk about the kitchen at Water Street, and they talk about how there's just bags upon bags of dead food that really do not end up getting used. And also talking about treatments, they said there's a big disparity between the actual owner of the company and the employees that work there. They said there's very little line of communication. And they said they kind of do that thing where the management will offer surveys and all this other stuff, trying to like gauge how what employees want and what they need, but according to employees past and present, nothing ever seems to change. um, and they told me they're also like cutting back on certain key staff in order to save money. There's an allegation that they are eliminating an entire general manager position, and told the employees it's not in the labor budget to give them a raise when they are currently the current GMs or management above them, when they are getting, oh, sorry, I misquoted. So they're getting rid of an entire $45,000 position while telling at the employees at the same time that that money cannot be used to give them raises. They're all often forced to work extra shifts, train staff with no incentives, and generally echoed that there is a just general amount of just apathy towards the barista staff. So, excuse me. So, again, there is a whole Reddit thread if you want to comb through it about kind of some of these allegations against Water Street Coffee. And a lot of this, again, is very boilerplate and for what we'd expect from a company that is really just not doing right by its workers. And I also want to talk a little bit about the timing, the timing of this, and how it coincides very closely with a similar set of allegations from our comrades over at Crow's Nest. I think this is a good opportunity for the community of Kalamazoo, the workers of Kalamazoo, to really look at what sort of leverage that they have. When you have two of basically the biggest names in local like coffee and kind of boutique breakfast stuff being called out around the same time for lack of pay and working conditions and sanitary conditions. This is what we in organizing call like a moment of opportunity. And um, it is a moment where I really think that baristas across the city of Kalamazoo could really start building some bridges with one another, some lines of communication. And whereas it's overwhelming and also very risky to start a union based out of just one particular store or company, if you start from a point where you've got, baristas from across town organizing, as well as all of the other staff that works in those stuff. Again, a lot of the Crow's Nest kitchen staff was engaging, and we've also got some complaints coming from the Water Street coffee kitchen staff. You see where I'm going with this? Yeah, yeah. It's what's that meme from The Good Place? I just want to nudge them together. So Water Street and Crow's Nest and Fourth Coast workers, maybe think about nudging yourselves together. Maybe think about having some meetings, some conversations, because Kalamazoo runs on baristas. It really does. And also just the all of the back of the house, prep cook staff, etc., that make Kalamazoo restaurants. You know, if the line cooks and the baristas teamed up and really started organizing, they would really have a chokehold on because Kalamazoo needs that. It absolutely the ruling class is not going to do without their nice boutique breakfasts and their coffee from either Fourth Coast or Water Street. So, and again, being a couple of beloved, community institutions as they are, and seeing that they're not living up to the expectations of the community, it is the type of union that I think could get a lot of community support. Just something to think about, especially for those of you who are working at Water Street, you're working at Fourth Coast Crow's Nest, and this might be an opportunity. It might be some of y'all, it might be easier to quit, and that is totally understandable. But the great thing, building and organizing, it leaves something for the next generation. So, your options are to quit. Your options may also be to try to establish some sort of organization that could have a lasting impact on how companies deal with baristas in the city of Kalamazoo going into the future. And this could be the start of something very, very big. Um, we're gonna stay on this and see how it goes. But as far as the boycotts go, that is what is being asked of some people at Water Street Coffee. As somebody who's been versed in labor organizing and all that stuff, I deeply hope that the workers over at Water Street and maybe also Fourth Coast Crow's Nest, as well as the many, many, many other restaurants and coffee shops around Kalamazoo, start having some very serious conversations about working conditions and benefits and hours and all the rest, and see what they can do when they get themselves organized. So again, we will link to the Reddit thread for one in our show notes. There's also our friends over at WRKR also posted up an article about it. So yeah, if you want to read more about what's going on at Water Street, we will make sure to link those in the show notes. We're going to go to a quick break. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You can find us online. We're on YouTube and we are on most podcasting platforms. You can usually, find our that's Media Cyphers Kalamazoo. Look us up online. If you could be so kind, subscribe, tell your friends. We're a real grassroots, local based show. So word of mouth is really how we get stuff out there. We will be right back. Keep your dial locked. This is Media Cyphers, only on 89.1 WIDR, your only source for political revolution. Hello again, everybody out there in radio land. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. So our next story, we're going to be talking a little bit about, ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. It's, he's a little fascist organization over there, over in Calhoun County. And there's an article from MLive talking about some troubling, inhumane conditions going on over there. This was published by MLive, written by Rose White for the Kalamazoo Gazette. It was published on April 27th. Troubling reports of abuse at Michigan ICE facility prompt call for investigation. A woman with physical and mental disabilities say deputies used excessive force, dragging her, kicking her, and yanking her by the hair while she was in custody at a Michigan immigration detention facility. This disturbing behavior and other troubling reports included the 2021 death of a detained immigrant, prompted the Michigan Immigrant Rights Center and the ACLU of Michigan to push U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement for an immediate investigation into conditions at the Calhoun County Correctional Facility. They have a history of abuse and not properly accommodating detainees in their facility, said Mel Moen Vaziri, staff attorney for the Michigan Immigrant Rights Center. Luisa Fernando Martinez Orozco, a woman born in Colombia who survived torture, suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder and struggles to walk because her kneecaps often dislocate. Because of that, she requires knee braces or a wheelchair to move around. Martinez Orozco was transferred from Texas to the Calhoun County Correctional Facility in December. Since then, she alleges deputies used excessive force against her 3 times because they misinterpreted her disabilities as resistance, according to a letter the civil rights groups wrote to ICE. I want to do a quick aside here, just because a lot of times whenever we talk about these immigration issues or things related to ICE, the thing that gets left out is the U.S.'s role in the unstable conditions in those countries. So I wanted to point out, particularly in this article, when they're talking about Martinez being tortured. This is in the context of coming from a Colombia that has long been facilitated a right-wing government that's been facilitated and materially supported by the United States. I think it was only until very recently that a left government was able to get elected over in Colombia. But just I will read a little bit of historical context from the Columbia to give you a sense of kind of the imperialist legacy that has kind of made Colombia what it is today. Back in 1962, the United States, uh, sorry, excuse me. I'm sorry, I lost my place here. Um, so I meant to mention, sorry, General William Yarborough. Um, and he was part of the American Special Forces, and his strategy for Colombia. He said Colombia's military and police, he advised, would have to fight dirty by engaging in paramilitary sabotage and/or terrorist activities against known communist proponents, activities which would be backed by the United States. Colombia's military assembled death squads to cleanse the Marquetilla Republic, as it was called, of Marxist partisans and anyone who sympathized with them. According to Alfred Vasquez Carrizosa, Colombia's former Minister of Foreign Affairs, this tactic meant the newly equipped and U.S. advised brigades could exterminate social workers, trade unionists, men and women who are not supportive of the establishment and who are assumed to be communist extremists. So for decades, you had a normalized government in Colombia that could literally terrorize its own citizens for um, either political activity or suspected political activity or union organizing, et cetera, et cetera. And this became normalized within government institutions with the material and ideological support of the United States. Again, you go back to the Cold War era, we let some, or I should say, the U.S. government let some monsters on the loose in the name of preventing the spread of communism. So this is the geopolitical context Martinez Orozco is coming from, where she is being, uh, uh, abuses to her physical body and human rights are happening here in Calhoun County. It all starts from the legacy of U.S. imperialism, and I always try to bring that back on the show because so much of the mainstream media will never bring up that context. Why did somebody from Colombia have to come up to the US in the first place? And it's because of decades of us really materially supporting these very brutal governments. So, again, going back, um, Martinez Orozco said in a translated statement, I was beaten, abused, kidnapped, felt like I was in a world where I didn't belong. In one instance, Martinez Orozco tried yelling pain, pain, one of the few English words she knows, while she was being dragged down a hallway in handcuffs. Another deputy then allegedly yanked her hair, causing lasting back pain. During this restraint, Martinez Orozco says she struggled to breathe and fainted twice. About 6 weeks later, Martinez Orozco alleges deputies restrained her in a chair after she struggled to walk to solitary confinement. Once released, she says her legs buckled and she fell to the ground. Deputies then allegedly pushed her legs against her stomach, causing her to cry out in extreme pain, the letter said. This left her unable to walk. I was so frightened for my life, so afraid of what the guards would do. I was afraid of the noise of the door opening because I didn't know who would walk through or what they would do to me next, Martinez Orozco said. The Calhoun County Correctional Facility, one of 4 Michigan jails with an ICE contact, currently has 127 detained immigrants. Under the ICE's last inspection, the Calhoun County Jail received a rating of meets expectations in March 2022. Over a 2-day period, inspectors interviewed 8 detainees who said they felt safe and had not been threatened or mistreated by staff. But the civil rights group says Martinez Orozco's allegations follow a pattern of concerns at the facility. The Calhoun County Correctional Facility is also facing a lawsuit after detainee Jesse Dean died in custody on February 5th, 2021. The suit argues Dean complained about abdominal pain at least 27 times but got little to no medical care. He also reported losing 20 pounds during his month-long detention. Since the death of Jesse Dean, we have seen detained immigrants, specifically those with physical and or mental disabilities, not be properly accommodated and treated at the Calhoun County uh, facility, Moen Vazari said. Federal law and ICE requires jails to provide necessary accommodations to detainees with disabilities. After the Michigan Immigrant Rights Center and the ACLU got involved, Martinez Orozco was transferred to a different facility in Texas. The groups are now pushing ICE to make the results of their investigation public, amend policies, and address conditions in Calhoun County. Everybody detained at these facilities, regardless of immigration status, needs to be treated with dignity, and any conditions, physical, mental, or otherwise, need to be properly accommodated, Moen Vaziri said. The Calhoun County Sheriff's Department and ICE did not respond to requests for comment. So again, if you want to read that yourself, that was published by MLive. It came out, was published on April 27th. Troubling reports of abuse at Michigan ICE facility prompt call for investigation. We're going to take another quick little break. When we come back, I think we're going to be joined by my co-host Lawrence, and we will dive into some more really important issues. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org, your only source for political revolution.
I should take the gum out.
All right, everybody, we are back. This is Media Cyphers, only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. Joined by my co-host Lawrence. Lawrence, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Oh, well, things are going pretty well. It's a gorgeous, sunny day out here on campus. Yeah, just down the block, we've got the Solidarity Encampment going strong. So very excited about that. And then I think we're going to talk about some of those related issues later on in the show. I know we've got some national stuff going on, but how you been lately, man? It's been a while since we've had you on the program.
Uh, it's been up and down, man. You know, mostly just helping out family. That's really about it. Nothing more, nothing less. Uh, and just staying out the way,
Oh yeah.
trying to trying to uh because of some of the stories that we have coming up, which are heartbreaking stories. You know, trying to find some joy and stuff. You know, even though we talk about very dark subjects.
Oh yeah. Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like there was a story I had that was like good news. I'm trying to remember what it was, but if I find
Oh,
it,
oh,
I'll
oh.
do it as a quick hit.
The only thing, the only quick hit that I have, I know that I think no, what's his name? What's the guy? Is it Pierce Morgan? Pierce Morgan has a YouTube thing now where he has his own channel where he's not doing they're not doing it on his show anymore. He has his own online show where he has people like Hassan Piker and Cenk Uygur and Crystal Ball on, and they debate Gaza with Zionists, basically. And it is basically a blood sport. It is the political version of rap battles. That's
That sounds
it
like a
is.
slightly more interesting version of Crossfire, which if you're old like me and Lawrence, you remember
uh
early 2000s. It was like what CNN? It was just like
yeah,
Tucker Carlson and James Carville representing one representing liberalism, one neoliberalism, one neoconservatism, and then there's a classic episode of the show where Jon Stewart comes in and just tears them both down. Look it up on
yeah,
YouTube;
yeah.
it's delight.
It's fantastic, fantastic stuff.
Mm.
But yeah, basically, yeah, basically the people who are left and who are right on the issue tries to calmly explain, you know, the right side of history and what people should be doing in this conflict, and then you have nutcases from the right wing try to yell and shout them down. It's it's interesting to watch. And as a
Okay.
person who likes battle rap, and I like watching debates, I'm like, I don't like the fact that this subject has now become a blood sport, but I do like the information dump that I do get from the smart people on the panel.
Hmm.
So
Okay,
it's
yeah.
just it's one of those things.
I'll have to check that out. Um, okay, so I think the first thing we wanted to we're gonna pivot a little bit. We were actually
Oh,
does relate a little bit
wait,
to
wait.
what?
One quick thing.
Yeah,
So we've talked about the Flint water crisis, and this will be the 10 years later after the Flint water crisis.
that's right.
Jordan
Yeah.
Sher Jordan Sheridan, who has covered the Flint water crisis more than most reporters and journalists, has a documentary talking about it 10 years after, and how the situation was a cover up. Those who caused this crisis and poisoned an American city did still hasn't been held accountable for it or gone to jail for it, and how some of the residents that still live there are still dealing with the effects of it. And I encourage people to watch and go and check out that documentary when it comes out. We'll put a link to it in the doobly doo below, because that crisis and the aftermath of that crisis, this is 10 years after that. And I want to also remind everybody, East Palestine, Ohio also was poisoned. And we're gonna have to have another 10 years after what happened there. And we need to have people held accountable for when these disasters happen, when these man-made disasters happen. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I'd say like, speaking about like the legacy of Flint, also, like I think one of the more depressing things is that I mean, we've seen this happen. Even here in our own state again, Bent Harbor's pipes for a long time. There were some deep concerns about that. I think there were some good folks actually working on solving those problems, but what it does boil down to is it's basically a form of environmental racism. You are allowed to poison people for profit or to save money if they happen to be working class and mostly black, if we're going to be real about it.
facts.
Black or Hispanic or just not white. Although, not to say that there aren't a lot of poor white people, especially in the Appalachians, who get similar treatment, but that does tend to be a through line. Even here in Kalamazoo, we've talked about it many, 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 many times about the way graphic packaging gets away with polluting the North Side, necessarily because it is a black working class neighborhood. So, um,
Yeah.
I think in the
Jordan.
years
Oh, go
since,
ahead.
there's probably more of an awareness about it, but we haven't yet been able to really bring about the kind of systemic change that is going to, uh, you know, solve those problems at the root.
Yeah, it, exactly. Uh, Jordan Sheridan has an interview with Crystal Ball from Breaking Points. I know some people probably know that show. Breaking Points is with Crystal Ball and Sagar. I don't know how to say his last name. I always slaughter his last name. He's basically the right wing. He's one step to the left of Tucker Carlson, even though he was like Tucker Carlson's he was like uh he was mentored by Tucker Carlson. Yeah, his they have that type of show where you have a right wing perspective and a left wing perspective talking about an issue. Crystal interviewed Jordan Sheridan from his YouTube channel, Status Coup, and they talked about the documentary. Please watch that interview. Go check out the documentary. It's gonna be super dope.
All right, yeah, looking forward to that one. And yeah, we'll link to that because I remember you sent a link to it in the group chat. I'll make sure we share
Yeah,
that in our show notes too.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, do we want to start off with something that's that's good? That's kind of good.
oh yeah, yeah, we need some chicken
I
soup
have a
for our
kind
soul.
of
Let's
good
let's get it.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, there's been a lot of talk about protests and people protesting in on college campuses. One of the places that also got had protesters was the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And this is why, and because our show talks about media analysis and we that's what we do here. I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about how the media uh portrays portrayed the protest and what the protest did. So, for those who do not know, over 100 journalists have died covering covering what's going on in Gaza and in the West Bank because of the IDF, not because of Hamas, because of the IDF. By international studies, by the Red Crescent Society and other independent bodies have looked at the story. So why do are we talking about the White House Correspondents' Dinner? White House Correspondents' Dinner is supposed to be is a moment where the watchdogs, the media, are supposed to have a moment of liberty and joy by joking around with the people that they're supposed to be holding accountable, i.e., the president, their cabinet, and the body politics, right? They're all supposed
Mhm.
to get into a giant room and basically circle jerk each other. That's kind of just what that is.
Yeah, no,
The American
absolutely.
people, the American people wasn't having it. There was a budget. There was uh hundreds and thousands of people there was I don't know the exact there was a large number, and going by what NBC and other outlets that covered it, the way that they protested I think is brilliant. They put out the 100 press vests of the names of the journalists that died is covering the story in front of where those other journalists can see it while they were walking into the event. And they did other extreme things that I think are a little wild. Like they held a mock execution of how the IDF are executing families over there. Like I think that I thought when I heard that and saw that, I was like, yo, that's wild. That's
I
what
mean, a
that
lot
might
of
be
people like, crap on like protest theater and stuff, but it is a way, especially for, so much of the event was trying to willfully ignore what is going on in Gaza. And it's all about like just throwing it in these people's faces. This is what is
yeah.
going on. You are throwing this big annual party to celebrate, journalism and freedom of speech while you're saying nothing about the way a government that we materially and financial support is, open season on journalists. Silence is deafening, as the term goes. So, like, yeah, I think like that is some very important protest theater to really throw that reality in the face of people who are actively and willfully ignoring it.
Yeah. Uh, hold on one second.
Hmm. Another thing I wanted to mention too is referring to the correspondence dinner, there is that just the level of hypocrisy um of how you had a lot of protesters, including Medea Benjamin. She's probably more well known, or one of the lead organizers of Code Pink, which is a femme-centered anti-war organization. Got roughed up by the cops. Essentially, all they were doing was like holding a sign indicating there's 100 plus dead Palestinian journalists since October 7th, and again got given the bums rush, which is actually something we've been seeing a lot at these kind of both like these liberal galas and fundraiser dinners. Is the moment somebody anti-genocide starts speaking up, they get really like rushed out of their bums. Like some of the footage I've seen of security kicking out these people reminds me in an eerie way of like some of the same footage, some of those clips you saw in 2016 at Trump rallies of protesters getting knocked around on their way out. um it's again, it's I feel like if you were a little bit more clever and good at video editing, you could probably make some point about the lesser evil there. Um, but
I sorry, sorry, go ahead.
oh yeah, no, I mean, I was just gonna say, like again, it functions a lot in the same way. It's like if somebody says something that you don't like, an uncomfortable truth, um, you get similarly irritated and uncomfortable whether you vote red or blue. But yeah, you go ahead. But what's up? I'll
Well,
toss the
I mean,
mic
you
to you,
talked about
Lawrence.
you.
Sorry.
Well, you talked about cold pink, and it's not just cold pink, like as we've seen, and the reason why I want to bring this up is that not just at the White House Correspondents' dinners, but also at rallies and other things of that nature, fundraisers, like how you talked about. It's it's how the media is choosing to talk about the protesters. Um, Bill Maher had a very long rant talking about how these protesters that are against this war are narcissistic. Uh, People on MSNBC and Morning Joe and others talking about the college protesters, and all these protesters are um, they don't have they are blocking freeways, they're disrupting campus and things of that nature, and that they don't know what they're talking about, that they're misinformed on the subject, that they're jobless or lazy, or they're just trying to get laid because this is the in thing to do. They're character assassinating the people who are protesting instead of engaging with what the people are protesting for and what they care about. It is very similar tactic to how the media tried to character assassinate the BLM movement, how the media tried to character assassinate people who were protesting the Vietnam War, people who are we have seen these things happen time and time again, where you attack the protesters and their motives instead of engaging with what they want. And when you talk to them about the things that they want our money to stop going to a government a government or an army, and that government and army is while that government and army is committing a genocide. Now, you can be mad at how they protest. Like, right? I don't like the fact that that they were doing the mock execution thing. I was like, you know what? That's a little bit much for me and my delicate sensibilities, and I'm pearl clutching, right? But I can't. But I don't. I'm not mad at why they're protesting and what they want. What they want is for us to stop funding Israel. If Israel wants to commit this ethnic cleansing and genocide, they can do it without our taxpayer money. That's it. Is that too much to ask? If we control the weapons and the purse strings of them committing this atrocity, then we can say, "Hey, yo, you went too far. You've done enough." Right?
Absolutely.
That's all. That's all that they're asking for. And the fact that we've talked about on this program how CNN and other organizations have to get their coverage approved by Israel before they could publish it. How Media Matters did an analysis of the language that is used to describe uh, an Israeli being killed by Hamas or Palestinian, and how they use very vicious visual language. But when it comes to Palestinians being brutalized by the IDF, it's very passive language, and it's very dismissive and passive language, as in we don't know who did it when it's clearly the IDF doing it. It's it's how they are framing things and what they are choosing to emphasize on or choosing to leave out. That is the whole point of this. And the people protesting these elite journalists on a topic that they should be holding President Biden and the White House accountable for is why I love our First Amendment free speech and why I love the American people. Because American people is on it. They're on it. They're not being fooled by it. So that was the thing that I was like, I thought that was hopeful.
Yeah, no, 100%, Lawrence. Yeah, pretty much agree with all those points. What did you want to hit on next?
Okay, next subject. Now we're going from a happy subject to a sad subject. Um, Speaking of Israel, since we're talking about Israel, we have to talk about this piece from NBC News. NBC News investigations have revealed that Israel strikes in Gaza and areas it said were safe. Okay, this is coming from NBC News. Uh, NBC has found that Palestinians were killed in several deadly airstrikes in the area in southern Gaza that the Israeli military has explicitly designated as safe zones. So we talked about this when we talked about them moving Gaza south and telling people to move south, and there was multiple stories of the IDF hitting the caravans that were moving south, hitting they were killing uh they have a pilot program called Daddy's Home where they explicitly kill family while they're in their houses. Uh a lot of Gaza is completely unlivable because of the indiscriminately shellings. Now, the places that Israel and the Israeli government has told the citizens that they can go that is safe from the violence, they have now bombed. That is literally that is super villain level. That is super villain level nasty right there. That is I remember watching Daredevil. I remember watching the movie Daredevil way back in 2000, I think it was 2004, right? And you had the late great Michael Clark Duncan playing Kingpin. He basically playing Kingpin like Frank Lucas, right? The the other mob boss wants him to buy him out. And he's like, "Yeah, man, it's cool. That's what's up. How's your daughter? Your daughter's doing good." And then he's like, "I want you to kill him and his daughter." He hires a hitman to kill him and his daughter after buying his corporation. The IDF is doing super villain level levels of atrocity in this article, and I'm just going to read a quick snippet of the article. Um, Tel Aviv, in Tel Aviv, NBC News investigates into several deadly airstrikes have found Palestinians were killed in areas in southern Gaza that the Israeli military explicitly said were safe zones. The attacks have taken place from January to April, and the Israeli military bombarded Rafah from the air, and the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu government signaled its intentions to launch a full-scale ground invasion into Gaza's southernmost city, which has now is now swollen to more than 1 million people. This southernmost city has over 1 million people. I want to remind everybody that the biggest city in Michigan, and this is where we're broadcasting from, is Detroit. And I don't think Detroit has 1 million people. I
No.
think if I remember correctly, city of Detroit population.
I don't have the
No,
number
I'm looking.
offhand.
No, I'm looking it up right now. It's 639,111. That city has more people than Detroit, and they're bombing it, and they're bombing the that area that was supposed to be safe. So they're telling the citizens that they remember, and I want everybody to understand that when we talk about this, the power dynamics that's here. Israel controls the water, the food, the medical supplies, everything in that governs those citizens, those Palestinian citizens, Israel controls their electricity, their Wi-Fi, their all of their communications. They know exactly where they are going. They know the places that they're telling them are safe. And the Israeli government, after forcibly moving them off of the land that's not theirs, is saying, you know what, we're just going to still kill them anyway.
Yeah, this reminds me of another story, and some of these we've talked about on the show, and others we haven't. But it really goes to there's just this very gruesome pathology in the IDF that they're really kind of trained to really just dehumanize people and to and let's be clear, this comes from some of the higher ups in the IDF. They talk about looking at children as like future enemy combatants, and like even the AI system that you referred to earlier, where's daddy. I think one of the most disturbing revelations, and we'll link to the article in this, find out more about this yourself. But one of the most disturbing things about me is just there's like an acceptable bracket of civilian casualties that any action is allowed to have, depending on like how high up a person is in Hamas. So like it is like if it's just like a low level Hamas person, 50 civilian casualties is acceptable. If it's somebody higher up to 300 is. And of course, the real answer is zero. The acceptable is zero, but they've literally baked in collateral damage into their algorithms. And not only that, but a couple weeks ago there was a report of Israeli drones being sent out, basically with the loudspeakers attached, playing the cries of women and children begging for help, trying to get people to run out the rubble and go outside and try to help them, and literally just taking pot shots. I mean, it would be this is like it's something you would see out of an exploitation film. It's I don't think even like a lot of gruesome 20th century war films would think of coming up with something this cartoonishly evil. But again, a lot of the baked in ideology is it's so much about like um what the kind of the way the IDF is taught, and a lot of the right wing civilian population is it's like the only way to prevent something like the Holocaust from happening again is to be as absolutely brutal as possible, and looking at it as colonialism as a tool to prevent from happening. Now, of course, as we've talked about on the show, and we've talked to, our progressive Jewish colleagues, it is like a really just disgusting perversion of what Jewish values are supposed to be. But this sort of viewpoint of like constant embattlement combined with kind of like the sort of license to be cruel has led to some of just like the absolute just supervillain nonsense we've been seeing reported out of Gaza right now.
Yeah, Doug, I feel you. You knew it was bad and it was indefensible for me. I agree with all your points, but I knew it became indefensible for me when the former head of the former Human Rights Watch head of the UN basically said that what's going on in Gaza is akin to the genocide in Rwanda. Like when when your army is being compared to Rwanda, to the genocide of Rwanda, when you're being compared to the genocide in Rwanda, you have done something wrong. You have done something excessively wrong, extremely wrong. It's not it is it is insane to me that we understand that's what's going on, yet our government is still choosing to be like, yeah, we can still give them money. We're still going to give them weapons. We're still going to give them money. It's not a problem. It's it's not an issue.
No, no. Yep, exactly. And again, you have people like, dyed in the wool Zionist supporters like Joe Biden who are slowly acclimating to the idea that his own base is quite upset about what is going on in Gaza. Um, while again, there's the internet has done a lot of wonders, and it's that we get to, especially young people, get to learn what is actually going on the ground rather than having to read all of these through like Western pro-Zionist filters. And you can tell from all of these encampments popping up all over the country that young people are pretty sickened by all of it, and they're no longer willing to just swallow the BS.
Yeah. We're gonna talk about that more about the campus protest more later in the episode. But my main question, my last point on this, and my main question is how does the, how is killing how is airstriking safe zones that the government of Israel and the IDF has indicated is safe? How is bombing those safe zones keeping Israel, the country, safe from more terrorist attacks? I want to understand the logic because the only logical explanation is, well, there's multiple. Either you're choosing to kill innocent civilians because those safe zones are where the civilians are. You can say that Hamas is hiding behind human shields all you want. You choosing to drop bombs on them is still killing civilians. How is killing the civilians in this situation keeping Israel safe? Because it's not. You're only going to be fomenting and elevating more resentment, disdain, and hate towards the country of Israel. And you're
Oh,
going to, yeah, there's going to be backlash.
yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, Lawrence, because like the whole concept of imperial blowback, which is we saw a lot of this in the wake of 9/11, where, the whole idea of like, oh, we're going to go get Al Qaeda and we're going to go get the Taliban. And of course, we extended our purview, depending on where there were either like oil or rare earth minerals, and it's still resentment in the region for years to come. I think, long time in the show, we talked a lot about how ISIS was able to really grow and recruit based on the war crimes that the U.S. perpetrated in that region of the world in the last 20 years. And in a very similar way, like everything that Israel has been doing in the last 6, 7 months is a perfect recruiting tool for Hamas or any other organization in its wake that sees uh you know if you see your family get drone struck, if you see your family or loved ones or community get tortured by IDF soldiers, um you're not going to want to break bread with the other side, and that should be pretty self-evident to anybody. um and it seems like it'd be self-evident to Israel. If again, the only logic that one would have is if they intend to either just eternally displace or genocide the population altogether. which I'm hoping at this point the international community would not allow Israel to do, and they've certainly gotten much more pushback to their brazen, targeting of civilians than I think I've ever seen in my lifetime. But yeah, unless your logic is these people will no longer exist, which is a tall order. I mean, the Israeli government's been trying to kind of wipe these people out or kick them out for 70 plus years. All you're going to do is stoke resentment to the next generation and continue, again, perpetuate the cycle of violence. Which, if you are a right wing demagogue like Netanyahu and the people in his cabinet, maybe that is something that you
Um, this is coming from. I just want to read something coming from Sky News. This is it's coming from Sky News, and this was Al Jazeera posted this. The IDF is 80% of the deaths. 80% of the deaths in Gaza has been innocent civilians. 80%.
want.
That's
80,
that's
not
that,
18, not 8. 8T, 80%.
yeah. Um, Al Jazeera posted about this. This was back in March. I'm trying to get the reference point that they're talking about. Uh, this is Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera is quoting. Who are they quoting? I'm trying to find who they're. I'm trying to find who they're quoting in this piece.
Oh, I'm
More
sorry.
than
So, oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no,
Uh
no, no. What,
The UN High Commissioner of Human Rights of Human Rights uh Vel I cannot pronounce these people's names today. Jesus. Um Velker Tushik no. Israel has been facing multiple criticism over the course of the air, leading to the high civilian casualty. Tel Aviv has defended such in the international criminal courts. Oh no, that was when they was having. That's when Rokana was pressing them about having. Nope, never mind. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I didn't have anything in particular. I was curious if I thought you were that was a segue into the ICC and the arrest warrants. We
Oh
can
no,
touch
no,
on that if you want.
I didn't know. We can touch on that. I'm looking up this thing that I saw. I want to verify. I'm sorry for giving that information. I'm trying to verify where that number's coming from. That's all.
Okay. I did want to mention too, amidst all of this, there has been an arrest warrant filed, or there will be, um, for some of the leaders of the Israeli government, which is um, pretty unprecedented. Uh, because so basically, there's reports now that the ICC may be close to issuing arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu and other Israeli officials, as well as some members of Hamas as well. That's the International Criminal Court. Um, and this is imminent. We don't know when it's going to happen. Um, of course, the U.S. position is as wishy-washy as you'd expect. They claim the ICC does not have that jurisdiction. They said, quote unquote, doesn't have jurisdiction over the Palestine situation. And really, between the lines, like if the rules of the international order are supposed to hold, regardless of what companies or not companies, what countries are supporting other countries, then they absolutely have that jurisdiction. And I don't think the Israeli officials, such as Netanyahu, would be kind of scrambling and in a panic over it to the extent they are if they did not have that jurisdiction. So Just a little reminder about what's going on. In an unprecedented, the ICC, the International Criminal Court, who I think we've kind of we've criticized before on the show for only they tend to only pursue criminals that do not support Western interests. But in this case, they are directly accusing and potentially marking an arrest warrant for a government that has the direct support of the United States, which is, in a big sense, really kind of uncharted waters. We're going to see, is the U.S. going to try to just kind of stand in between, protect its little brother, as it were, which again is really going to just put the hypocrisy of the U.S. out there in kind of bold-faced type, or um, is the U.S. going to do a maneuver where maybe they'll stand back and they'll let Netanyahu be the sacrificial lamb while we get another prime minister who is maybe less toxic in their rhetoric than Netanyahu, but is essentially doing the same stuff. It is worth a reminder that a lot of what I've seen, even some liberal media, is trying to put the blame squarely on the shoulders of Netanyahu. But again, this has been going on for 70 years. And a lot of these pathologies that we're seeing in the civilian death toll in Gaza have been facilitated by years and years of propaganda, conditioning, and colonial attitudes among the Israeli population that can't just be rested at the feet of one uh, right wing prime minister in particular.
Yeah, pretty much. Um, should should uh should they all be in the Hague for international war crimes? Absolutely. Should they all go to jail for international war crimes? Absolutely. Um, are they going to? Are they going to? That's a different conversation. Um, I don't know if uh I don't know if that is going to be the case, and I'm not sure if that is if we will ever see justice. But no, Bibi Netanyahu should step down. The whole the whole job of the prime minister was to protect their civilians from attacks. He failed to do so. He failed to do so while at the same time saying there's no partner for peace in Palestine and with the Palestinian people, while propping up Hamas, while funding Hamas, and then blaming Hamas for retaliating because of the apartheid system that Israel has with the people in Gaza and the West Bank. Do I think that Hamas should do those violent things? No, because Hamas is a terrorist organization. They have done terrorist attacks. When you kill innocent civilians because of political or religious means, you are a terrorist. Point blank, period. Hamas is. But
Yeah,
since I'm
and
holding
quick,
Hamas
quick
to
to
that
point out,
standard,
as we always do, and there's it's kind of a Taliban Soviet Union situation with Hamas, which is to say, Israel undermined more moderate groups and literally financially uh, provided financial support to Hamas, kind of propping them up, is kind of like one of those things where um, it almost reminds me of like kind of the whole Pied Piper thing back in 2016. It's like they
yeah,
wanted
you
they wanted the government representing Palestinians to be more unpalatable to the international community, so they wanted a group that was explicitly Islamist rather than the more secular organizations like the PLO or even kind of the Marxist tinged organization, People's Front for the Liberation of Palestine. So I like to bring that up whenever that's important context for people, whenever we're talking about Hamas. But go
yeah,
ahead, Lawrence.
we have no, but that's the point. If we're holding one standard for one group, we have to hold the same standard for another. At this point, at this particular time in history, Israel has done at least six, seven Are we close to 10 times the amount of terrorism as Hamas did on October 7th? They we're reaching numbers that are in the double digits of how of doubling, tripling. We went past that. They have done more than enough to be that to now they are doing terrorist activity back to innocent people to justify a terrorist attack that happened to them.
Yeah,
And it's
and
not okay.
we should remember too, like that in itself is a war crime. There are
Yeah,
international laws on the books about proportionality, which is to say, if
yeah,
you are attacked, your response should be proportional to whatever attack happened on your nation. So I think good case in point. So the recent exchanges between Iran and Israel. Israel bombed one of Iran's embassies. Iran bombed one of their airfields. And for the most part, that adheres to kind of principles of proportionality. They're like, you hit us in this one, spot, we're going to hit you back. Although I think with the case of Iran's retaliation, there were less civilian casualties, but again, that is an international law in itself. I have seen some gross people who are just like, well, what about October 7th, and what about releasing the hostages? It's like several things can be true. That is never a good thing when people are killed. Yes, okay, we get that, but the proportional response would have been, we're going, and Israel says they've got like one of the most accurate militaries in the world, and they could have done this. They pride themselves on their assassination programs. Go kill the people who did it and leave the rest of Gaza alone. They could have done that, but instead we're looking at 35,000 plus people dead, over 12,000 children. That is a deliberate choice, and it's a very grim and genocidal one.
yeah, pretty much.
All right. So with that, you know what? Why don't we talk a little bit about campus stuff? I'm
Oh,
not
oh,
sure if
I found that thing that I found that thing that we were talking about. 70%, this is coming from I'm gonna actually, this is coming from the UN. Uh uh this is the World UN website. Uh 70%. As of the 12th of February, the UN Women's Report uh that at least report of over 28,000 Palestinians were killed, and that 70% of those killed were women and children. But that was back in February.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So yeah, that's yeah. Sorry, but anyway,
Okay, so I think let's pivot, maybe talk a little bit about what's going on campus, and I think we may still be joined by our guest around 1:30. Again, they're actively organizing the encampment down the street. So if they don't make it,
yeah,
it's probably because they are busy and they're
it's
having to
probably because they're
like
busy.
deal with that. Anybody who's been in if you've ever been involved in organizing something like that, there's like a million moving parts. So if they don't make it in today, that's
Okay,
fine. We'll
before
see if
we
we can.
before we go there, there is a quick hit that I want to talk about
Oh,
because I feel like we do a story like this every week when I'm on here, uh, or every other time I'm on here, of why things like the Black Lives Matter protests and other protests, we can talk about police accountability and police brutality always happens. Um, I feel I don't like doing these stories. I'm gonna keep it real with you. I really don't. I hate doing these stories, as a matter of fact. But because I don't feel like enough people are talking about it, I want to talk about it. So body cam footage. This is out of Ohio. Body cam footage revealed Ohio man died in police custody after yelling, "I can't breathe." No, we're not talking about George Floyd. We're talking about a story that recently happened of April 18th. Kenton police officers uh, uh, have been placed on administrative leave uh, in connection with uh, a April 18th arrest in Ohio. Um, the family of Ohio man who died while in police custody has uh retained legal representation as the body cam footage of the incident has been released to the public. The last words of Franklin E. Tyson uttered after in in eerily similar to those of George Floyd uh when he was killed by the police in 2020, right? Uh, just so everybody knows, I'm reading this from revolt.tv. We'll put the article in the doobly doo below. Shout out to Democracy Now! And the Young Turks and the other places that I saw talk about the story. I did not see the story get nearly enough attention, so that's why I'm talking about it. Tyson passed away after on April 18th following an interaction with the members of the Canton police force. So I'm not going to read the entire article, but let me sum it up for you. The 53-year-old apparently uh, uh, went into a social club. Went to a social club. Allegedly, he knocked down a nearby utility pole, and this is why the cops were called. The cops were called because he knocked down a utility pole with his car, and they ended up finding him in a nearby bar, right? And during this altercation of them trying to talk to him, trying to arrest him, be like, "Hey, yo, you hit a utility pole. Can we talk to you? Are you okay?" He fled the scene. He fled the scene from the crash. So we have a person, again, like this is the context. This 53-year-old man hit a utility pole, fled the scene, and was at a bar. So clearly, he may have a concussion. He may be wanting to need help. Maybe this was a time for you to be like, "Hey, yo, you hit a utility pole. Your car's still there. We found you here. We might need to take you to the hospital or something. Can we talk to you? Or this, that, or the third?" The body cam footage show that the officers end up wrestling this man to the ground, handcuffing him behind his back, and you hear the officers jokingly talking about how they've never been in a bar fight before and kneeling on his neck and on his upper body while this man is saying, "I can't breathe." 5 minutes later, 5 minutes after kneeling on his back, having his arms behind his back, uh, it was 5 minutes later when somebody was said, "Hey, he might be out." They did not check on him for 5 minutes until after they're joking about being into a bar fight, wrestling this man down, having their knees on his upper body and on his neck while he's saying, "I can't breathe." 3 minutes later is when they try to perform resuscitation on him, and they call ambulance after that. So 8 minutes. It took 8 minutes for multiple officers to check on this person that they have now arrested, tried to put CPR on, and the man dies. But now these officers are on now they're on administrative leave. When we talk about the lack of sympathy and empathy, that the police officers have for your average citizens. It's stuff like this. You knew this man got into an accident. Like, yeah, he needs to go to jail. He needs to go to jail. He hit a utility pole. At the very least, we can make sure to be like, hey, yo, we need to take you to the hospital. We don't know if you have a concussion. Hey, yo, you hit a pole, man. We need to make sure that you're okay. Any of these normal things you could do because you did break a law and you fled the scene. So you did break a law. He deserved to see a judge. He did not deserve to see his damn maker. Is that too much to ask for? Is that, I think that's my only question. Is that too much to ask for? He deserved to see a judge. He needed to see a judge. Why, between the 8 minutes of y'all wrestling this man to the ground, having your knee on his neck and on his upper body, did y'all not check to see, hey, is he still breathing? Not one time? What am I missing here?
I think I want to just respond to this story, and it's a way too many times. If you've listened to the show over the years, it's a broken record statement, but it's worth bringing up. So in my line of work, I work in healthcare. I do a lot of mental health care work. I work with folks with developmental disabilities and the like. And a lot of that, sometimes that means you have to help a person who is in the middle of like either a mental health episode or a violent episode. And you need to make sure you can help them de escalate in a way that will be safe for them and the way around them. And I say that to say, anybody who's in a job like mine, we are trained on how to de escalate and sometimes disarm people who are actively being violent without causing them bodily harm. I've never made more than 18 bucks an hour doing that type of work, sometimes much less. Um, and I just always ask if we get that kind of training to deal with people who are having those kind of episodes without resorting to violence. What is the excuse of a police officer who ostensibly, and it's like we know that policing is institutionally and historically related to union busting and slave catching. We know this, but to a police officer, they think their job is to protect and serve the community. If that is how you approach these things, how come you do not have the skill set to de-escalate a situation without resorting to lethal force? Why? Why don't you use that training if you have it? Why don't you have that training? I am left asking that question every time I see something like this happen because I'm here to let you know, yes, there are ways to de-escalate situations like that without using violence. That could have, everybody could have gone home that day. And it is depressing, distressing, and angering to see this every time when even again, like a lot of people try to say it's like, oh, they were being difficult, whatever. It's like again, people in my profession, we deal with difficult people all the time without having to use violence or force. And it is inexcusable that cops anywhere, um, again, are able to resort to using force, especially in a situation where it sounds like the guy, again, if he hit a pole, he could have had a concussion. Any number of things could have been going on. And instead, this man is just very sadly just another statistic. Um,
I, I've done combat sports that have chokeholds. You don't hold chokeholds for more than 5 seconds. Or even in the UFC, when someone's in a chokehold, they tap. They you do they, there's a response of them tapping, right? It, you if there's multiple people holding down someone, and uh, why do you need to have your knee on their upper body or on their neck if there's multiple of you? Is is your unarmed combat training that bad that multiple officers can't take down someone who might have a concussion? Maybe you need to find a different job. Walmart's always hiring. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand. For me, and maybe this is maybe as you explained it, Andy, you work in the healthcare field. If you were to do the thing that these officers did, you would have been fired. Your license would have been taken away, right? If a teacher would have done the same thing to an unruly student, right? They would get fired. They would have their license taken away. We have police officers detaining someone who's being unruly. I'll even grant you that. He was being unruly. He wasn't cooperating. I'll grant you all of that, right? Why did it take 5 minutes for you to respond or to even think that he is okay if he's telling you that he cannot breathe? You did not check for 5 minutes. That is negligent. And there's multiple of you in a public space. If I don't, if a babysitter didn't check on a child that they knew was choking, for 5 minutes, we would call that an unintentional manslaughter. These officers knew he was choking because they were doing the choking. And they chose not to see if he's okay. That's the difference. Like, nah, man, it's when we talk about police reform, and there's people who talk about we need to dismantle policing entirely. When we talk about defunding the police, there isn't a settlement large enough that's going to bring this family man back to his community. But their family will get a settlement that will be taken out of the police budget. That's defunding the police. When it comes to the type of situation, when we talk about dismantling policing, this happened in Ohio. This could happen to anybody in America. Not just Ohio, not just this black man that's in Ohio. This could happen to anybody in America. White dude, Latino dude, Asian person, woman, non-binary, anybody. We need the police officers to be held more accountable, and we need the police officers to have more humanity and dignity for the citizens that they're supposed to be protecting and serving. Because I have to ask the question, how was their actions protecting and serving the person who needed to go to jail? Because that person's now in the ground.
Yep, absolutely. And we'll make sure to link to that story in the show notes. But yeah, just again,
Yeah.
another example of police brutality. And again, police well, it wasn't a shot, but like,
They
using
didn't shoot
force
him.
and asking
They
questions
didn't
later.
shoot him. No, they didn't shoot him, but they choked him to death.
Hmm.
The same thing that happened to George Floyd they did to this man.
Yeah.
Like they didn't learn. The police departments did not learn. Anyway,
So this next 20 minutes or so that we got, I do want to talk about campus stuff. I don't know if we'll still be having our guests on. I haven't really heard anything from them yet. So,
okay.
um,
All right,
but I did want to spend
one
some
quick
time
hit.
talking about it.
You want to do one quick hit before we go there
Oh,
to
sure.
see if
Yeah.
they hop on? To see if they hop on.
Hmm.
Um, we're both hip hop heads. We're both hip hop heads, and I haven't had a chance to ask you about because we're both hip hop heads. I haven't had a chance to ask you about. Have you seen this year, the year of disses? That's what this is. Everybody's dropping diss tracks on each other. Have you seen or heard any of the diss tracks that's been dropped?
Wait, diss tracks
Because
against who again? I'm sorry.
so everybody is firing shots at everybody. This is just the year of diss tracks. Like I don't understand why after the Cat Williams interview on Shannon Sharp's
The,
show,
the the last one I
everybody
heard
just
about was
decided
the whole Nicki and Megan thing, but that's it's the
no, bro. So obviously people throw subliminals at each other all the time, and this is just a quick hit. I just wanted to talk about it because I thought it was funny. Um, so after J. Cole and Drake dropped first person shooter, Kendrick Lamar hopped on a feature and basically dissed them. Dude doing basically subliminals, not saying their name. And then Cole dropped a diss track in response. He recanted it because he's like, look, I don't actually dislike this man. I don't want to fake beef with anybody. It's just is what it is. But it is what it is. He took it back. Drake didn't. Drake was like, "Oh, Future, Rick Ross, Weekend, Kendrick, all y'all coming after me? Okay, I'm firing shots at all y'all." So he drops a diss track. He drops two. Rick Ross drops a diss track back to Drake. Kendrick just releases against Drake today. So it's just like this is just a year of disses, and I'm just here for it as a hip hop head. It's all entertainment. This has nothing to do with actual real world politics or anything. This is just purely for my own petty entertainment. But I thought it was hilarious and funny, and it's good for the game. It's good for the game of hip hop that everybody wants to be competitive and say that they're the best out in the world, and they're competing to see who's the best by dropping more music and material for us the casual listeners to listen to. And I think it is a good thing. I think it's a good thing. Just as long as it doesn't go too far, right? We've
hmm
seen hip hop beef that has gone too far. We've seen hip hop beef where things don't end well. Like this isn't a Biggie and Tupac thing where the media was influencing stuff that was going on that led to real world violence. This is just people creating music and hilarious and in wonderful ways, just making fun of each other over beats, and everybody can still live and make money. This is more of a Ti and Ludacris thing than that, which I'm here for. I'm here for people wanting to be competitive and wanting to show that they are the best. And still, at the end of the day, these men can go back home and still make money and live and be respectable human beings. Like it's wonderful.
hmm
I just find
absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
You gotta
Um,
listen to it. I was trying to
mm.
buy some time for your friend to see if your boys coming, the campus person's coming on.
Yeah, as of right now, I don't think that's happening, but I did want to talk at least a little bit about the
All
campus
right,
stuff.
cool.
So a couple of things I wanted to point out just at the national level. So as we talked about last week, everybody from the president on down has really been trying to paint these protests as being anti-Semitic. Um, Qualifiably, they are not. And the students who are organizing these things all over the country know the difference. And in fact, many of the demonstrations across the country, probably the most outrageous example was, Colombia, where you had, police being called, stuck on the protesters, essentially, and the reason given is like, oh, it is making Jewish students feel unsafe when several of the organizing groups involved with the encampment of Colombia, we're talking about Jewish Voice for Peace, a lot of like, peace activists, rabbinical scholars and stuff. So it's ridiculous on its face.
Wasn't J Street also out there or no?
Maybe I hadn't heard them name drop, but that is definitely a
Yeah.
possibility.
No, Jewish Voice for Peace was definitely out. Shout out to Jewish Voice for Peace. They are out here doing the Lord's work. They have been on the front lines saying not in our name. And not in our name is the American Jewish rallying cry, basically. Basically saying do not do what you're doing to Palestinians and and using our faith as a guise or saying this is for our people because it's not. They don't believe in ethnic cleansing, which they're doing the right thing. They are on the Lord's side, and I agree.
Yeah, and something that's really amazing to watch too, some of these videos coming from these encampments are just how disciplined and organized a lot of these encampments are. And I did want to reference some of the attempted trolling by right-wing Zionists and stuff at these encampments and how they've just spectacularly backfired. So I'm thinking about a couple videos come to mind where you had either just a Zionist individual, or in one case, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute, a right-wing YouTube personality trying to instigate or agitate people at these encampments. So there's one that's kind of gone viral of this young Zionist lady. Just she walks into the middle of the quad. I can't remember which university it was. I think it was NYU, but she's got like Jew written on her shirt. She's got a Star of David on the back, and she's just kind of standing in the middle, turning, and there's nobody reacts. She starts shouting like, "I am a Jew. I am a Zionist." She literally shouts, "Dox me!" And nobody at the protest pays her any attention. They're just going about their day. I think at one point, the Jewish Voice for Peace people raised the banner up in her shot just to kind of point out how ridiculous they were being. But again, nobody reacted. They didn't get, didn't instigate or agitate. There's another example that comes to mind of, and this one was really out there. So a right wing YouTube vlogger, and I can't remember her name, but she went out there and tried to she did that thing where she's like, I want to have a conversation. I just want to have a conversation. And she's going up to random people at the encampment with her video camera,
Yeah,
obviously. And
she was doing a bootleg version of Change My Mind. It was
yes,
it's that's what
exactly.
it is.
And every stage talk to is just like, no, thank you, no, thank you, or very politely, it's like, oh, you can go speak to our media liaison. And at one point in the video, she's like, but the media liaison doesn't want to talk to me. And it's like the subtext here is the media liaison probably talked to them and clocked that they were a right wing Zionist trying to like farm footage of anti-Zionist, either acting foolish or anti-Semitic or whatever. And at one point in the video, this is just kind of funny to watch. She starts crying because like, why won't anybody talk to me? Ooh, and it's like kind of the fake white women tears for one, but it's also like you can almost see some of the frustration bleed in. She wasn't successfully able to goad any of these students, so she can't get any good footage. So like she's just like, I'm just trying to have a conversation. And then like the postscript, she's trying to claim like, oh, these students were so brainwashed. They wouldn't None of them would speak for themselves. They'd only speak through the media liaison. And it's like, of course, anybody who's been to a protest ever knows that the reason there's a media liaison is not so that we can all cultishly speak in one voice. It's so that there's an organized person who can talk to people, and you don't have one chaos, and you don't have opportunities for people like this right winger to try to take footage out of context or use stuff against you. So
Oh
um
wait, that's not the funniest one. The funniest one was at Northwestern. An average Karen tried to walk their dog through the encampment and called the police on them. She called the police on them like the Karen that like this like the Central Park Karen that was saying that a black man was threatening her life. She literally did the same thing. She was like, I'm a Jewish woman and these protesters are being violent towards me, and
I
they
saw
have it
that.
on video. She like the people are literally like 3 to 4, 5 feet away from her, and they're like, no one's circling her. She's free to walk away. We have it on video. She chose to walk in here. And when they pan the camera where she walked from the gate and where the gate is and where it's open, there's no one's by her. It's all open space. She could walk right back out away from the situation. But she again, it is people weaponizing this Karen tried to weaponize the police against peaceful protesters. No different again. no different than when we saw black protesters or Karens weaponizing the police on black people. It's the same type of thing. Your you are your freedom and liberty is causing me distress. And because I feel distress, I'm going to weaponize the police to cause harm on you. When those people in that encampment was minding their business.
Absolutely. And like, I do want to point out there was like at least one situation over the weekend where something like this was effective. You might have seen it on Democracy Now, but over at Northeastern, um the cops arrested about 100 people. This is Northeastern University. I believe that's over in is that Pennsylvania but the school justified the raid because of some quote unquote virulent anti-Semitic slurs after someone chanted "Kill the Jews" at the encampment. Now, here's the twist. There was video and eyewitness testimony that that anti-Semitic chant was actually done by a counter protester holding an Israeli flag. So it was literally um, a Zionist counter protester who knew that if he shouted this hateful anti Semitic rhetoric, that might get the cops called on them. Again, through like fog of war. Unfortunately for him, we live in 2024. So there's tons and tons of recordings of him being the one who instigated it. But when all is said and done, the university, which is looking for any excuse it can, plus some very, suppression friendly cops.
Yeah, US News. Yeah, you're right. US News pro-Palestinian encampment on Northeastern University. Yeah. That the dude that you're saying, they have the picture of him on the website. They
So
have
it's
him.
like when you're trying to paint these students as anti-Semitic, and the best you can do is to get taped on camera, trying to frame them up. Like, again, it really is only just like kind of a certain older generation that only gets their news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, that is really still believing a lot of this stuff. And I think that's why you're seeing the desperation of these clowns coming on into the middle of these encampments, trying to instigate, escalate people, because they know that any young person who's actually participating, or who have friends who are participating, or have seen the footage for themselves, knows, one, there's Jewish organizations involved in this. Two, it is against the genocide in Gaza. And two, and three, they have very specific demands. It's about demanding their universities to divest from their financial entanglements that materially support the IDF and the state of Israel. So,
Oh, wait. And it was in Boston, by the way.
yeah, it was Boston.
Northeast
Oh, sorry.
University
Yeah.
is in
I don't
Boston.
know where all my
Uh,
universities are. My bad.
no,
Somewhere
so
in the New England. I got that part right,
yeah,
I
no,
guess.
so the thing that makes me laugh about all of this, especially because again, we saw agitators. I'm comparing this to Black Lives Matter, right? Because a lot of Black Lives Matter protests were peaceful, but agitators infiltrated, and a lot of those agitators did not wear masks, right? This dude did not wear a mask, so we know that these people are counter to what the protest or the peaceful protest was going on. They forget why the Klan and other right-wing hate groups wear masks. They wear masks so they can't be identified when they know that they're about to do something that's harmful, that can get people arrested, that's illegal, right?
Hmm.
So that it's harder to be identified. This is the narcissism of a lot of these of the modern age, where not only do they want to do a crime, they want to film themselves doing it because
Yeah, exactly.
the
Just the audacity of it.
the audacity. Yes, absolutely.
So I did want to take, we got like 5 minutes left, and
So
since we're not
so
able to have our guests on and get it straight from the horse's mouth, I have been down at the encampment last couple of days, and I didn't again didn't really do a lot of like interviews and such. You can find some good pictures from the encampments, or at least like the sidewalk chalk around it on our Facebook page. Um, very concise, very smart. Again, a lot of messaging about the corporations that are supporting Israel, like Starbucks. A lot of linking it to colonialism here, even right here in Michigan. And also just wanted to they as of now so what they're working on right now is trying to get Western Michigan University to disclose its financial information investments to kind of they want to not only have the university do it, but also a third party kind of comb through them, see if the university that is right here at Western is financially supporting the IDF or Israel in any concrete way. I can't remember the whole list of their other demands. We will be having some conversations with the organizers about that at some point later on. But just maybe just a couple observations about the camp. It's had a very light, familial atmosphere the last few times I've come down. A lot of families down there, especially around. I know they've had some. So they last night there was music and food around 7 o'clock, and it's been a really good resource for people to find out more about Gaza. And as of right now, I believe there aren't any active efforts to tear the camp down from police or anybody like that. They have been kind
Yet.
of
Yet.
there have been the police have threatened several times to shut down the camp, but they have not followed through on it. And I'm referring, of course, this more to um, public safety and Western Student Services. Kind of reasoning they gave is, a lot of us. I know they said they didn't want camps or they didn't want tents on that particular ground because they, again, something about the grass. But it does sound like, at least for now, public safety, whether that's campus public safety or KDPS, is kind of backed off. And again, several times in the last couple of days, they threatened to come down and shut down the camp, and they have not done that yet. So there's a lot going on that either I don't really know about or I can't really speak to, but it does sound like there's some active discussions going on between the students organizing the encampment and the administration. So hopefully we can bring you more information about that next week. You can, but for now, if you want to support the camp, there are a couple ways you can do that. Um, they actively are asking for supplies. They're asking for people to come down and visit, especially seeing a lot of their peak visitors around sunset. And You can actually you can find information about it on our Media Cyphers Facebook page about the Solidarity Encampment and some of their needs. That is, we posted something about that on
I,
about 3 days ago on April 27th. Um, Again, stop by, say hello to them, express your solidarity. I'm not sure how long they're going to be out there. If they'll continue to be out there during summer one, which I really hope so. I think it'd be very important to have that encampment presence there once the students come back for summer semester. Um, but yeah, that's those are good kind of some of the things you can do. And just one last thing, I also want to give credit to, they're doing a lot of good work out there, and they are very well organized. The leadership is composed of students, and it is not easy setting up a solidarity encampment, and they've done a fantastic and stellar job, kind of juggling all of the various spinning balls that go into that. So I want to give my tip of the hat as an organizer and as a kind of lefty radio host for what they've been able to do over there. And Again, it's been really strong so far. I hope that we can keep it together, and especially that the encampment can get its goals met or get its demands met from the administration.
Oh,
Lawrence, you
I
got
do want to
anything
say
else
one
before
thing.
we wrap things up?
Doc, I want to say a few things. One, if you hear someone say that they're for free speech, but they want the police to crack down on protesters who are protesting uh the war and protesting America giving funding, or they are okay with arresting people who are not for boycotting, divesting, or arresting people who want to boycott, divest, and sanction Israel. They're not for free speech. Because even in the example that we gave of the Northwestern counter protesters saying kill all the Jews or whatever, the understanding that that is hate speech, but hate speech is still protected under our First Amendment. My thing is this: we cannot allow those people, especially right wingers, this is mostly more like right wingers, who always wants to use the guise of free speech, that facts don't care about your feelings and all that stuff. And to have those people try to strip away our right to protest, boycott, divest, and sanction another country who is using our funding to commit genocide and ethnic cleansing. If you know people who are like that, you must remind them that you're not for free speech. You're not for the principles that you say that you're for. That these people are doing the most American thing that they can do, and they're doing it in the most positive way that they can do. Because they're not taking up arms, they're not going to go fight. They're bringing awareness so that we are aware of where our money is going as Americans. And that is the most American thing you can do.
Absolutely, 100%. I think we're going to leave it there. Lawrence, thanks for coming on the program today. Shout out to the folks at the encampment. They're right down the way. Go say hi to them, maybe see if they need any donations, all that stuff. In any case, we're going to wrap things up. Electropop therapy is next. Y'all have been listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. Until next time, keep on fighting for that revolution solution.